Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chronicles. My name is Sarah, and I'm here with my husband, Jeremy,
Hello.
and our very special guest, Pat Sheveland.
Hi.
And today we're here to talk to you guys about her book, Living Life in the Middle. Pat, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Oh, sure. Well, as Sarah said, I'm Pat Sheveland, and I am a woman who has been living life in the middle in a multi-generational family where we had 4 generations under one roof. And so, with that, I wrote a book about the experience and how to best maneuver with all the chaotic times, but also the wonderful times of living with challenges and the gifts that come from that.
And Jeremy and I have been reading your book currently, and we're enjoying it.
Oh, yes, it's been very helpful.
Which favorite part so far?
I love how she laid out the whole things for balance to actually, kind of gives you a guide to go by. But I think that's a big problem for a lot of people is that they may know what they want, but they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, that's actually what I like about the book too. I like that it's it's autobiographical, but it's also in a workbook format, which I really appreciate that it doesn't just say, well, this is how I manage. This is how I manage, and this is what you're going to do to work through your unique situation. And I really appreciate that part of the book a lot. As someone struggling with, because I know everybody's in a different situation. Every caregiver, their situation is going to differ from another caregiver, but really the coping mechanisms can be similar.
Yes, absolutely. I wrote it in terms of that I had my 90-some-year-old mother living with us up until a couple of months ago when she passed. But we've all been in different situations where, when we're living in a family and we have, I'll say challenges as caregivers, and it doesn't matter who we're caregiving for. These steps that I call it the balance program so that we can create balance in our lives. Because I always say, we need to have a gallon in order to give a cup. We need to be able to put on our own oxygen mask on first in order to help those that we are serving. So it's really important to do that. So that's why I wrote it as I'm a life coach by background. I'm a grief coach also, and now I'm specializing in the caregiving space because all of those things kind of intertwine. And so I wrote it more as a self-help coaching program.
Yes, and I think that's exactly what we love about it. So what is balance?
Okay, well, balance is an acronym for the various steps that I share with my readers and clients. And basically, each of the letters of balance stands for one of the programs. So, would you like me just to quickly do a quick overview of that or?
Yes.
Okay. So, the B in balance is what I call the Bodhi. And for anybody that's knowledgeable of Eastern religion, you may have heard that Buddha sat underneath the Bodhi tree, and that's where he found enlightenment. And in this first step, I have people sit underneath their own Bodhi tree, so to speak. And it's really to understand, who are you? Where are you at in your life? What are the strengths that you have? What are some of the challenges that sometimes show up even when we have those strengths? To really understand what's our framework, um, where are we starting from? Because we change, we're always changing. And so I have some tools in there to go online and do some strength assessments for yourself so that you have a good understanding of that. I also have you walk through and take a look at, where am I at in my life right now? What are the places where I'm really satisfied? Where maybe I'm not? So those are done on a scale of 0 to 10 to just get a lay of the land. And also our emotional status. What are some of the emotional things that may be within us more frequently than not, more of those negative emotions? And it's not a good or bad, it just is. But it's figuring out that foundation, so to speak, so that we know where to go. And then the most interesting thing that I do have in here is called human design. And it's based upon the time we were born, where we were born, the day that we were born. And there are 5 different designs that any of us will fall into, which make up all of the population of the world. And that's a really cool thing because it's so spot on and very accurate to let us know kind of what do we bring to the table and who are we here to be. And it helps to understand, again, those strengths and sometimes the challenges that may go with being that certain human design. So that's the B is the Bodhi. Then the next step is authoring your dream. And I actually have written in the book a guided meditation. But for anybody, and I'll end that that you'll have in the show notes, I will actually give away my book for free. People can get a link to that and actually get the ebook copy. And they can actually get a guided meditation that I've actually recorded. And it just helps to figure out, I call it authoring your dream. What is it that you really want in life? What do you want it to look like? Because once we figure that out and we say, okay, in 6 months or a year, this is how I would really like things to be, it offers us a way to start stepping forward into that beautiful life story that you want to create.
Yes.
And then the L in balance is life within your village. And this is a really important thing, no matter whether you have a child on the spectrum, right? Or we
Yep.
have an elderly parent who has some dementia or anything in between. It's figuring out who is all part of your village and what are some of the dynamics there. And how do we want our village to look? So those are family members. And I wrote the book for a multi-generational home, but it can be used in many aspects. Sometimes not everybody is living under one roof, but it's to take a look at who is all here in our village and how would we like those relationships to be? How would we like us to be set up within our own village? And then I also talk about creating your own tribe. And I use this because I'm married to a man who comes from the indigenous cultures, and tribe is so important. And when we are kind of struggling to handle all ends, we're working, right? We have a job that we have to work for. We're taking care of our family. You know, we may have our elders, we may have our younger children. We're doing all of that in between. So it's really important to have a tribe that can support you. And sometimes it's not your family members. Oftentimes it's not,
Yeah.
because our family members are so immersed into our own stuff that they may not have that objectivity or just be able to be that shoulder to cry on that we may need. So I go through, how do you determine who is the best 2 or 3 people that you can just really kind of lean into when you really need it?
Yes. And I love that too.
Yeah,
I think it's
it's
important
very
to have
helpful.
people just outside of your direct family dynamic that you can count on. So I love that part of the book.
Yeah, I have a client now that she doesn't have that many family members that are close by, and so as she's choosing her tribe, she took a look within her community, and I have my clients take a look at who are the people, what are the characteristics, what are their personalities, what do you need from them, and then actually going out and asking them to be a member of your tribe. And usually people are so honored that you ask because we're all here that we want to help each other, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it really ends up to be cool. Yeah. Okay. And then I talk about some actions for health. There are several things that I've been immersed in some Eastern, it's called the Qigong, which is a complementary and alternative. They might call it medicine, but it really is about energy and working with our energy. So I teach a little bit about Qigong. In the book, I talk about creating your own faith toolbox, and faith is not necessarily a religious thing. I use that as an acronym. I'm finding awesome inspiration to heal, coming up with, a list of 10 things that when you're feeling really stressed, you can go to this list going, oh, I'm just going to open the window and breathe in some fresh air and listen to the birds. I'm just going to take 3 soft, deep, gentle breaths. So I teach about breathing. I teach about gratitude because the science and studies show how gratitude can help us create more happiness in our life. And it really does help calm us down. So those are some of the things that I go through in this Actions for Health. And the goal is, as you're going through the book, is to have your own health toolbox, your own faith toolbox, your own personalized health and wellness plan, because we're all different. But we know that when we're under stress, we may eat too much or we may not eat enough. Some people may have a few extra beers at night, using that as a way to calm themselves down. And so this is just a way to take a look at what's going on in my life and what can I do to be healthy so that I can be the healthiest caregiver and feel really balanced with that. And then I go into, when we're with families, there's always stuff, right? We
Yeah.
bring our
Oh yeah.
past, we bring any trauma that we might have experienced. There's just so much of the emotional thing going on there. And so I go through creating some new perceptions. How do we create some new perceptions about what's gone on in our life? Or maybe some people are a little challenging to be around. Creating some new perceptions. So I have some exercises about that in the book that I know that people have found really, really helpful. One example that I use is, sometimes people can get on our nerves. I live in a multi-generational household. Sometimes people will get on my nerves, but then I have to step back. I take those 3 soft, deep, gentle breaths, and then I go back and look at them as a young child and think, what are they really wanting? What are they really looking for? And most of the time, all we're looking for when we're acting out is some positive attention, to be loved,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
right?
To be heard, to be
So
seen.
yeah, that's all we want. And so if you look at someone as a 3-year-old child, we all still have that inner child within us. And so how it just makes it a little bit easier to kind of move off our upset with them and to move forward and have some new perceptions there. So I talk about that a little bit and just, help people do some exercises with that. And then the C in balance goes a little bit deeper. I talk about my own story, but it's claiming your future. And my belief is that we bring all of our ancestral wounding, generational trauma, all of that kind of stuff comes up. And epigenetics actually proves that. So there's science behind that. And I want people to be able to take a look at that and find ways to heal that so that we're not passing that down to our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, that we're healing those wounds in today's time frame so that we can create a better life, not only for ourselves, but for all of our future generations. So it's kind of digging a little bit deeper and seeing what are some of the commonalities that might show up and how do we find that healing. And forgiveness has a lot to do with that, finding the way to forgive. So I have a couple of forgiveness exercises in there. Um, Using kindness, we can have positive karma. We've all heard about karma, right? Oh,
Yes.
that karma will get them, right, if someone's acting out in a way that shouldn't. But I also believe that there's positive karma. And so that we can, I kind of think of it as a bank account. We all do things that may have created some karmic debt, so to speak,
Mhm.
in our bank account. But when we are providing forgiveness or we are being kind to others, I think kindness is so huge. And trying to live our lives with as much unconditional love as we can, that heals and that brings positive things into our karmic account so that anything that might have even been generational, maybe bad things happened. There was abandonment in my family, a lot of abandonment. And so the way that I'm trying to heal that is to be a good parent and grandparent, to be kind, to offer my services and volunteer at certain things. And I think that helps us to feel better, but also brings us, that positive karma, so to speak, and provides healing for future generations.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of a little bit deeper, right? That was a little
Yeah.
bit deeper. A lot going on there. And then finally, the E in balance is entering into a life of purpose. And I think as caregivers, sometimes we lose sight of what our purpose is. We're so immersed into doing the day-to-day activities
Yes.
of taking care of, whoever we're taking care of, whether we're doing it for work or whether we're doing it in the home space, like you are with your children. I had been doing with my mom. We lose sight because we're so busy taking care of other people. But there still is that piece of what is our purpose? Maybe there is a greater purpose, or maybe that is our purpose at the time, to just take care of our family and those that we are caregivers for. But we may find, and so I show an exercise kind of going through my own family of how I came to my life purpose. How some other members of my family really came to their true life, or what I call your soul's purpose. Because that's what I believe that we're here for, is to help one another, love one another, create the best life possible, even in all the turmoil,
Yep.
and do what makes our hearts sing,
Mhm.
right? You're doing the
Yeah.
podcast because that makes your heart sing, right?
It does.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so
it's been healing for us.
yeah,
It's been a whole new purpose
yeah,
for me as as a caregiver, as someone who works in healthcare and takes care of kids with special needs. It really, there was a time I lost my own purpose. Like, what am I doing for me? Like, nothing.
hmm
And that's why we started this. This has been a healing journey for us. So purpose is, easy to get lost, but so important.
Absolutely. Just it's been a mental, it's helped both of our mental healths as we started doing this, especially during a pandemic, uh, especially
yes,
after she got COVID, and then I was in charge of taking care of her and the kids and trying to keep everyone safe.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah. It is so huge, and I don't know. There's something when we give unto others, which, like what you're doing with the podcast, much,
Yeah.
in addition to taking care of your family and all that you're doing here. And, Sarah, you working with people as a CNA. I mean, I know as a nurse, I've been a caregiver my whole life too, since I was very young. And giving to others is healing. Providing to others is healing, because it kind of gets us out of our own head and our own misery, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that provides healing for us,
Yeah.
right?
No, so why should we focus on boundaries?
Oh, boundaries are so important because as caregivers, we tend to let the boundaries get so expanded, and we can get totally burnt out. And so it's really important for us to care for ourselves in addition to caring for other people. Like I said, we need to have a gallon in order to give a cup. And so boundaries are super important, just to create, not to create division, but just to make sure that you keep your own sanity, that you keep your own health, that you continue to be able to breathe so that you can care for others and care for yourself all at the same time.
Yes. No, I definitely agree with that. Um, I've seen boundaries get kind of fuzzy with caring for family members and things like that. And so I agree with you that that's super important. Is there a type of integrational family structure that you recommend?
You know, um, Being that we are just kind of moving slowly out of this pandemic situation, it was interesting last year that in our little cul-de-sac, we had 5 families that were living some kind of intergenerational lifestyle. Because people needed to have help, uh,
Yeah.
parents were working and they had small children, and so the retired parents came in and helped. So they didn't all necessarily live together, but they would support each other, kind of coming in and out and being that village that we needed. So for us, it being in a family of 4 generations, it worked living together. We have a very large home. My son and daughter-in-law bought a very large home with the whole purpose that we're all going to live together. But it helped because, like with my mother, who was in her 90s, I couldn't leave her alone. So if I wanted to go away for a night or a couple of nights, I had someone here that was automatically built in to keep an eye on her and make sure she got her medication. If my son and daughter-in-law need to go somewhere, I'm here to take care of my 2-year-old granddaughter. So that has been a real helpful thing for us. And just, I think it teaches our young people, how to honor our elderly. And it also helps to heal the elderly to be around that young energy. So that worked for us.
Yes. Now I also know that there are a lot of families who have had to move in with their parents or have their elderly parents move in with them during the pandemic, either pull them out of a, congregate setting where maybe they lived in like an elderly home, or, in an elderly community where they'd pull their family in to live with them. Do you see this? Because that was like a direct effect of the pandemic. Do you see this being a trend that maybe post-pandemic that will stay as multi-generational
Oh,
family
yes.
living together? Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the statistics are out there, and it shows that it has been there's been a surge of it, and 1 in 5 families in the US now are living in a multi-generational family. So, and that's considered 3 generations
Yes.
or more. So we have a lot of that, and it's not, there's not the cultural boundaries that's happening within all cultures, just because of that fact that to be able to be supportive to one another. And I think because of the pandemic, you know, I know people my age, their parents were in, different congregate living situations, and it was devastating to not be able to be with them and have the interaction with them that they normally would have.
Yeah.
So I think people are kind of relooking at this, and from a financial perspective, if you can have everybody living together, like for us, we all share in the cost of running the home, so you can maybe afford a little bigger home, and so that people can have their space, but because everybody's kind of sharing their gifts and their treasures and all of that, so that you can keep the home running.
Yes. This one is something that I've dealt with personally. I have seen many people personally, and in my professional setting, I've had coworkers have had breakdowns with caregiver burnout and just burnout all around. How do you address that in your book, and what tips and advice do you have for anybody experiencing burnout?
Well, I think my whole book is really pretty much about that, but I think the main things are finding ways to help yourself breathe, to find that tribe that can come in and support you when you just need to step away for a minute, an hour,
Yeah.
half a day, whatever the case may be, but finding that support, that tribe. Um, and really, truly, it is implementing some of these tools that I share, like the breathing, which is as simple as taking 3 soft, deep, gentle breaths, but doing it very consciously so that you are kind of putting all of those other noisy thoughts away. But that actually helps us physiologically because it helps us calm down um, our nervous system. It helps us to calm down and have the cortisol, which is our stress hormone, to not be flowing into our body so heavily. So there actually is some physiological reasons for that, but also in with the emotional things. So I think that is just like so emotional, or it's so important. And when we talked about the boundaries, we want to be everything to everybody, and caregivers, we're all a breed that,
Yeah.
it's like, I'll take it on. I'll take it on. I want to take care of people. We have love in our hearts. We want to share that love. We want to be the ones that, are available for everybody, but we have to remember that we have to be available for ourselves first.
Yes. I absolutely agree with that. My next question is, how have these exercises helped you, your family, your friends? What is like the best thing? If you could get one thing out of these exercises, what do you think the most important thing is? Take your time.
I would say that, yeah, it's just, they all play on one another, but I say it's creating your community, that village,
Okay. Yep.
how you want that to be, and who do you want to be a part of that. So your village, your greater village, maybe your extended family, your immediate family, support systems
Yes.
that you can have, because we all need, and to be open to taking in that support and helping ourselves, so that in turn we can help others. I think that's probably the most important thing. It's figuring out what works in your certain situation. Like you and Jeremy, who are the people that would be there for you and when you need to take a break, and I'm sure that you have some of that in place, but that's the important thing, is to take a look around and see what's missing and work on bringing in that support to help you.
Yes. I guess that's the whole bottom line is, community. We can't do it alone. Caregivers can't do it alone. Um, and that's definitely the bottom line. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. We've managed to expand our support network with, and social media also, I think, and I think you might agree with it, with this, it can be very like bad, but it can be a great way to expand your support networks. To help you get in touch with
Yep.
people who who know things that maybe you don't know. I actually have somebody that I've been talking to on social media. I've never met this person in person, but we have a very similar situation regarding our children. And even just like we grew up in the same town and now we live in different towns and that are neighboring, and just like our experiences are very similar. And it's funny how like you get people brought together that way, and then all of a sudden this person that I haven't even met in person yet is somebody who I'll go to for questions regarding my child, or whatever. And it's amazing how sometimes just stepping outside of who you would think right away, finding people on social media, and
Yep.
it's just amazing how you can just find people that can be objective and super helpful. So I actually love that advice. I think that that's really, at the end of the day, it's so important. It does take a village to care for each other, not just raise a child, but to care for each
Well, yeah,
other.
right.
Um,
Yep, that's I always say, is it takes a village to raise a child. We talked about that, but it takes a village to help our elders. It takes a village to support ourselves. And social media, I just want to say, yes, absolutely. I mean, there are some where it may be, where people are kind of staying in the flow of the negative energy, but then you can step out of that one and find others. And podcasts like what you guys are doing is so important. And just think of, with this pandemic, we were so isolated. That is the way that we're going to connect with each other, is through social media, through podcasts, through all of that, and stay connected and find the resources. And I'm so glad that you found this person, because how cool is that you could support one another, and what one of you hasn't figured out, the other person
I
probably
know, isn't
has.
it? It's so crazy. I love it though. It can be like social media can be really great tool to bring people, especially during the pandemic. But again, it does have its dark side. It really does too. But
Sorry, I was thinking of some of the Facebook groups that I've been in, and it's like, oh, but part of it is my heart just goes out to it because I belong to a lot of
yeah,
caregiver Facebook groups, and it's a place for people to vent, and that's okay. I mean, we need to be able to do that, but then there needs to be some boundaries around that because you just kind of keep the negative energy going is not going to
yes,
serve
and
ourselves. We need to find the positive
yes, and
influence
sometimes
too.
like parent groups can be so terrible. I found that some mom groups are so judgmental and just like negative, like you
Hmm.
don't parent the way I parent and you're wrong, and I don't like that at all, because if there's one thing I learned having kids, it's that what works for my kids does not work for other people's kids and vice versa. um Same thing with caring for the elderly or caring for anybody for that matter. What works for one person is not going to work for the next person. Your approach with the lady in room 322 is not going to work with the lady in 323. You gotta tailor
Right.
your approach, your mannerisms, your structure, the way about you for each individual person. And I think that some of that gets lost, you know.
Yes, yes. And yeah, we need to meet people where they are at, and it can change day to day and minute by
Exactly.
minute, depending on what's going on. So I agree with you. I was thinking back to my days, working in a nursing home when I was young and before I became a registered nurse. And it's like, yes, every room was housed someone who's an individual.
Yes.
And I needed to approach one, and I could get one person to take a bath by going through this way. Another person, I had to figure out a different way to help them to, bathe because they might get resistant to it. So yeah, everyone is so
Yeah.
different. And that's like our children,
Yeah.
right? It's yeah.
I think that's everybody though. I have certain friends that I talk to in a different way than I talk to other friends. It's just, it doesn't mean I'm more or less comfortable with them. It's just their personalities, just handle things differently. And that's, I mean, but that's the dark end of social media anyway. Um, that judginess. Uh,
Yeah.
but anyway, where can so where can our audience find you if they have more questions, if they want to reach out to you? Where would be a good place for them to reach you?
Yes, I have a website and it's called healingfamilygrief.com. And they can reach out to me there. And I just want to let you know, I'm just working on getting this book, a link on there to be able to download the free book. But right now, it's not all built on the website yet. So all they have to do is just send me a message through my website and say, want the free book, the free caregiver book, and I will send them. I just need their email address and I can send them the electronic copy. And then they have all the tools
Okay,
right
great.
there.
And I was going to ask you, that was actually the next question, is where can they get a copy of your book, whether they prefer ebook or like a physical copy?
Yep, they can just send me a message and I'll hook
All
them up.
right, great. Oh,
I'll hook them up.
thank you.
It's free. I want this to be able to get out to people um and certainly reach out to me if anybody has any questions. I'm real open to. I also have a link where people can set up time on my calendar if they want
Okay,
to chat.
great. Is I can link your I will link your website on our Facebook page, Caregiver Chronicles. Um,
Okay,
if any of my audience on, through social media, I can also link it on the Instagram. So that way there, if any of my
wonderful.
audience wants to reach out to you, they'll have a little bit easier access that way. So I can definitely do that. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Anything you
Well, what I'll do is I will email you a direct link to the
Okay.
free ebook. So you can just have that link, and then that just gets them right into where order my free ebook, and they can just get it too. They don't have to go through my
Okay,
website.
great.
So I'll
Great. I
send that
can do
off
that.
to
I
you.
can put that on the Caregiver Chronicles Facebook page and our Instagram page. And yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything else you'd like to talk about that you've done personally? I know you've books on grief and things like that. Would you like to just mention those real quick?
Well, yes, I wrote a book. My background is as a nurse and then as a life coach, and it just so happened that I was born to grieving parents. My brother died before I was born. And so through the journey of my life, I was able to help my mother in her buried grief that was buried for like 60 years because we never talked about it. And other women started coming to me who were bereaved mothers. So I ended up writing a book, my first book, well, it's my second book, but my first book that's kind of a self-help book is called How Do I Survive? 7 Steps to Living After Child Loss. And again, it's fashioned the same way as this current book in the fact that it gives steps, different tools and resources, knowing that it's not a linear process to find healing in our grief, to find healing in our caregiving stress. So it's gives a lot of tools, and I just tell people try it on. If it works and it feels good, cool, you've just got a new tool in your toolbox. If it doesn't resonate for you, that's okay too. I just put that off to the side, but it's worthwhile. I've had a lot of positive feedback, and I also do companion coaching. So I actually will do coaching with individuals on these processes and programs if they want to have like really quick movement in their life because they're burning out or the grief is just so overwhelming. So I help people directly with that also.
Okay, great. With that, I want to start wrapping up, and I want to thank you so much, Pat, for coming on our show. I really appreciate it. Again, I've been reading your book. I'm on chapter 8 now, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really learning some things about myself as I go through it. I intend on sitting down and
cool.
doing the exercises and reading it. I'm reading this, and some of the things in the book I'm seeing really resonate with my mother. So I definitely plan on recommending she read it as well. That'll wrap up this week's episode of Caregiver Chronicles. Pat, thank you so much for coming on again. You can find us at Caregiver Chronicles pod@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Caregiver Chronicles, CareCron2 on Instagram, and our Twitter account, CareCron1. Thank you so much for listening this week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.